Hello folks, today I'm going to paint a copy of an oil painting. There it is. Something along the Patapsco River called Blue Heron Falls. And we're going to use some acrylics, and we've watered them down. Here's our three primary colors of yellow, red, and blue. A little burnt umber thrown in. And away we go. This painting was called Blue Heron Falls. The original was done in oil. And the reason it's called that is as we were painting there, a couple of us, the heron was coming down and fishing in the rapids. I guess they can see the fish better there. I don't know. So he had quite a time of it. So that's why it's named this. So the video was running at 2 times the speed, so you don't get too bogged down watching all the slow parts. I work very quickly anyway. So let's see. So what have I done? I've blocked in the sky. I'm starting to block in the water. And I'm working on a piece of, I think this is illustration board today, or a piece of 100% rag matte board, which I like to paint on. When you paint on this, the paint sometimes gets absorbed and might get a little flat, so I end up going back and enhancing or adding more color, darkening things up, enhancing, adjusting as we go. So let's see, I'm putting in some background trees and some darkening here. Just a little background so that when I do the tree trunks in the foreground here, we'll have something in between, something to give it some distance. And this is yellow ochre, and this is to establish the soil around the river. And then you can see I'm adding a little bit of a darker color, again trying to establish some soil, some earth, some sand, whatever it is. This gets deposited over the centuries along the river, and of course it gets washed downstream, and the granite is exposed, the boulders are exposed, and they get eroded. So it's quite a crazy quilt of stone and earth and gravel and sand and broken trees and twigs and obviously herons fishing, and all the while the water just cascading down these along these stones and carving a new path and moving things downriver. All right, so this is more of a fall scene, so I'm putting in some this looks like burnt sienna and perhaps a very slight touch of red, and then I see I'm already into the burnt umber, my favorite color. As you have watched me for a while, you probably hear me mention that beautiful dark brown burnt umber quite a bit. The main difference between burnt umber and raw umber is burnt umber is a little bit of a darker brown. Raw umber has a little bit of more of a yellow cast to it. So we put in our first tree trunks, and this is probably pure burnt umber. And you'll see that I go over it several times because, as I said before, the color kind of soaks into the surface. And I want to use the dark to suggest certain trunks that might be closer to the viewer's line of sight, and the lighter ones would be, of course, off in the distance. We always try to think about aerial perspective in that as things recede into the distance, they are grayer, lighter, perhaps bluer. And, because the water vapor in the atmosphere tends to obliterate the intensity of color and the intensity of darks, and things fuse together more like a fog, I guess is one apt description. And so less detail in the background, and then save your detail for your foreground, which we're certainly going to get into here in a few minutes. So again, this looks like burnt sienna, and I've got some red in there, and probably whatever else is in that brush, and I'm just gonna keep adding this layered color And once again, these are acrylic paints. I've watered them down quite a bit, and so they act like watercolors. But the interesting thing is you can paint over and over with these transparent bits of color, and it does not disturb the color underneath as it would if I were using conventional watercolors. With conventional watercolors, as you scrub new colors on, you can bring the old colors into the new, and the color gets reconstituted, and it can contaminate these new colors and dull them down. If I'm doing this red over a green, then it's going to just turn to mush. So again, with the acrylics, we have the advantage of the transparency, whereas the transparent washes that are put on over the top are not contaminated by the colors underneath, so they stay fairly pure, and it gives a great deal more luminosity to your colors that you would usually not achieve without a lot of effort using traditional watercolors. Alright, so I'm just going to go on and on and on here, and you'll see I don't think I need to explain all of what I'm doing. The more you watch my videos, the more you'll understand what I'm up to as I go along. So perhaps a little bit of music in here would be nice while I get through the rest of this. So let's go find some. What do we got? Okay, so we're back painting away, filling in some dark in the background, trying to enhance or enhance that tree line, maybe make them darker, make them come forward a little bit more. It was a little too pale, probably because the color soaked into the paper a little bit too much for me. So I'm going to do that and probably add some more color to the trees, and then I'm going to add a bunch of, going to enhance the stones or the granite boulders and all the twigs and sumac and saplings and such that grow along the river's edge. And here's some darker fall color into the leafy parts of the trees. And I'm not sure what I'm doing here, folks. I'm putting in some, here we go. It's putting some darker, to break up these bits of brushy areas that grow in between all these other trees, all the vines and all the miscellaneous growth that comes in between all of those, because no one mows this area but the animals that chew on the bark and whatever they chew on. So let's see, I'm darkening along the river, along the edges of the granite boulders, just endless little filigree of leaves and color and shapes, and we just keep on going. It really does take quite some time to build up all the details in a painting. You can see that I started with a very large, almost a 1-inch wide brush, and I slowly worked my way to smaller and smaller brushes as I can't get the details out of the bigger brushes. So that's a good way to work, because you don't get bogged down by the details too early in a painting, because if you do that, you're going to lose interest and you're going to get frustrated. So I spend lots of time, here tapping in some darks, breaking up the bark edges, and so on. I spend lots of time in the detail in the end, because that's what really brings a painting together. And I'll probably, here we go, painting in some sticks. All the sumac and saplings and whatever naturally occurring growth that is along the Patapsco, all these little bits of saplings that may or may not grow into something later. They could get washed away by the next rainstorm. Oh, here's a broken limb or part of a tree that's laying in the river, and once a number of those, and of course once an ice storm comes through, they'll kind of float a little further downstream and get themselves wedged into a new section of boulders, a little bit further down the Patapsco River, and eventually out into the Chesapeake Bay. Well, and here I am, just putting in lots of little, bit of leafy parts maybe that hung on from last year, and smaller twigs, probably using a very small, I don't even know what the number of brushes are anymore. I've stopped looking. But a small brush, and if I'm doing the twigs and the limbs, I'm using a very fine round brush, a little sable with a very pointed tip. Probably a fairly good quality brush. Although, as you've heard me say before, it's not always the brush. Sometimes you reach for a really nasty brush that isn't worth using to get some of these textures in here. Okay, so I'll just keep messing about with the filigree and finish this painting. I'm going to say thanks for watching a little bit early and let Bach finish entertaining you, and we'll see you next trip.